What's going on, Babylonians? It's me, Songs of Rays, and I'm back with some more Miasma Chronicles gameplay footage to be able to bring to you. Now, today we're going to be doing a guide all around Miasma powers, and especially around the early game. So this is going to be all the way up to and including the first boss fight that are going to be in the game. So you're going to be under level 10 usually when it comes to this, and it's going to be the first 3 powers that you manage to acquire. Now, to be able to do this guide, we're going to explain what utility each one of these does possess, what in terms of like what's the most effective if you're looking for an offensive, a defensive, or a utility-based kind of power, and then we're going to rank them from there so you know which ones are going to be the better ones to be able to equip and be able to take out in the majority of your battlefield fights. But before we go any further, if you are enjoying the Miasma Chronicles guides, then make sure to drop a like and subscribe to be able to find your way back to the channel, ready for more guides to be able to come your way. But with all that said and done, let's get right into it. Alright then, so when it comes to Miasma powers, you earn these almost at certain points in the story when you manage to find Miasma storms that are out and about, and you basically just absorb the power of a Miasma tornado right into your gauntlet, and that just unlocks a brand new power for you to be able to use. Now, every single one of these powers will be using up your kilowatts resource, so you kind of need to factor in the power to like impact that it's going to have in every single scenario, so you kind of need to make that choice as to what's going to be more right for yourself. Now, as you do progress through the game, you are able to kind of like modify these skills. You are able to find a ways to be able to affect how they work, how they behave, and extra kind of like things on top of that just to be able to help you out inside of your gameplay. So if we have a quick look at the first one that you do manage to grab is going to be Miasma Storm. Now, how this works is that you're able to pick up and throw enemies from outside of cover, and this works within a certain range. This is going to be 8 squares from yourself. Now, in the tutorial, this does kind of show you off that you're able to throw enemies into like environmental hazards, into like something like explosive barrels, for example, to be able to do a decent amount of damage and almost instant kill most of the enemies that exist in this game, most of the grunt type enemies anyway. But it also has other practical uses when it comes to that, because while you can throw them into barrels, barrels are kind of like situational as to where they're kind of placed inside of a battlefield, so what else can you do with this? Well, as standard, you can pick up an enemy that's behind cover that's been giving you a bit of trouble, and you can throw them out into the open. This means that you're going to have a better hit chance to be able to start landing your own shots for the rest of your team, and it does increase your crit multiplier from being able to do that. Other things that you can do with this is be able to throw that enemy into another enemy to be able to cause some kind of like knockback, to be able to affect 2 enemies for the price of 1. Overall, this is a brilliant ability to be able to start out with, and it's a lot of fun to be able to mess around with. This does have a relatively cheap cost at 40 kilowatts, meaning that as standard with your main energy bar, you will be able to cast this twice before you then have to find a way or some kind of means to be able to recharge it. But if you manage to get all the way to the first upgrade in terms of Elvis to be able to get the capacity to increase it by 20, that means it's standard that you can cast this 3 times before you start running dry on and going on empty. Now, there are some effective ways to be able to modify this, because we do have 2 red chip slots and we also have 1 blue, and red increases its offensive utility or gives you some extra kind of like stealing in some kind of sense in terms of like vampiric and everything like that, and then you also have the blue, which is more the utility to be able to like reduce its cost, to be able to do some other random kind of stuff alongside that. So in terms of like red chips, and I will be doing a guide on chips when I actually have a little bit more data behind it, but let's have a look as to what I currently have available to be able to do that. We have ways to be able to steal some plastic, but you might want to notice that on the right hand side it actually increases the cost. This is something that you do need to be able to factor in once you do start modifying every single one of the Miasma skills, because it's important to be able to balance how many times you can cast an ability before you then need to be able to recharge your glove. Things like being able to steal plastic from targets is great, being able to do some extra acid damage over 2 turns is also pretty damn good, and if you want ways to be able to heal yourself inside of combat, then you do have access to vamp mods to be able to then start healing yourself after you've thrown them out into the open. In terms of blue slots though, we do have things like AP Saver, which means that you're allowed to cast this kind of ability for free when you're in combat, and there are ways to be able to reduce the kilowatts, which we're going to be looking at in a few other skills because I've already got those modded in, but you can actually reduce its cost down even further, and that allows you to be able to have a bit more of an easier time to be able to cast this ability more freely. Overall, Miasma Storm is a lot of fun, and it's the first one that you get, and you get guaranteed this throughout the story because it is one of the story quests, so therefore it is a lot of fun to be able to mess about with. Just be mindful that there are some enemies that are immune to knockback, so you might want to be a little bit mindful as to who you're kind of using this on, but in most cases this will absolutely serve you well, and it's not a bad shout for the first ability in the game. So next up, in terms of like the playthrough, in terms of what you're going to come across before everything else, you're going to be getting Electro Chain, and this is going to be second on our list. And what this does is a bit more offense based because it has a better range, it will also do damage, and it also has a steeper cost when it comes to kilowatts. So if we have a quick look as to what this can do, you'll see the infographic right here in terms of like what it will say, what it will basically sort itself out to do. And what it means is that you hit an initial enemy, and then from there it has the ability to be able to chain up to nearby targets that are around that initial enemy. As standard, this will do 20 points of damage, but there are ways to be able to increase this further by using that said red slot. An amazing thing that you can put straight into this red slot is going to be something to be able to cause status and to be able to cause additional damage over time. Burn is absolutely fantastic because it will then start applying that damage over time to other enemies, but it also increases the base damage of this skill, taking it from 20 damage to 50 damage, and then it applies 30 damage extra over 3 turns to those people that have been affected. Other things that you can do are going to be like acid, and this is going to be more effective if you come up against enemies that have armor, meaning that you're going to be increasing your damage by 20 at standard, and then every single turn that that enemy then takes, they start losing an armor point, weakening them for the rest of the combat that you're going to be undertaking. Additionally, other things that you could do is potentially mix up with Vamp, and this would then be a very good way to be able to start healing yourself, allowing you to be able to potentially heal up to 60 HP or 90 HP if you do have Vamp 2.0. Overall, Electro Chainer is absolutely amazing, and I did swap this out to be able to grab this when I actually got it as my second ability because I wanted something a little bit more offense based rather than something that's a little bit more utility focused that requires the environment when it comes to something like Miasma Storm. Now, it is important to be able to notice that the kilowatts on this at standard will be 50, and if you do add anything to be able to increase its damage, it will take you over into that 60 threshold, meaning that unless you do grab that kilowatt capacity mod, then you're not going to be able to cast this more than once until you then need to be able to recharge. Either way, I absolutely love Electro Chainer, but that doesn't really hold a candle when it comes to the next one, and this is going to be the first one that you do get after you beat the main boss that's going to be leading up to the main fight, and this is going to be Tragul Chak Crook, and this is going to be the Call of the Grabber. The reason why Call of the Grabber is absolutely amazing at what it is able to do is it solves so many problems that you have when you have a 3-person team, but it also solves the healing problem that you do have. Now, most of the time in this game that you'll only heal up a tiny bit, depending on the difficulty that you do actually play, with some of the higher difficulties meaning no healing is applied whatsoever, so you do need to be able to factor in how many medkits that you are able to carry around with you to be able to heal up the rest of your team while you're in combat. This alleviates all of that because not only does it put an extra body on the field, meaning that enemies now have an additional person to be able to focus on, to be able to start attacking. They also have this unit that is there to be able to heal all of your friendlies up to full, and it can do this one at a time. If you've played anything when it comes to this game, or if you've seen any of the footage, you'll know how annoying the Witch Doctors are when it comes to being able to heal enemies all the way back up to full, considering all the damage that you've just dealt. Well, now you have one on your side, allowing you to be able to heal all the way back up to full, and all it costs is 70 kilowatts. Now, obviously, this is quite steep, and it is effective to be able to actually reduce this as much as possible, so that is why I do have 2 blue chips to be able to reduce the casting of it by 10 kilowatts each, and this will reduce it down to 50, meaning as standard I'm allowed to cast this twice, but it also makes it a little bit easier for me to be able to cast when I've got my gun that's equipped with ways to be able to start charging up my glove as I start shooting at enemies. But the real benefit on this is that while it is quite heavily invested in terms of the blue chips, it doesn't actually mean that you need to put anything into the red. As you can see, that some of this being able to steal plastic from targets, you don't need that because this is a healing unit, it's not going to be anywhere near enemies. You could potentially try out something with like acid or some damage over time to see if that will get the spawn to be able to actually do something, but you're going to be using this as a way to be able to heal your team rather than actually going out and using it offensively, so therefore it doesn't make any sense to be able to go out and do that. Now, one thing that you do need to note when it comes to the frog is that it only has a duration of 4 turns, meaning that it's going to last there. Now, you do want to potentially put this inside like near certain like friendly when it comes to it, meaning that they have the ability to be able to move over and then heal up that teammate. The reason why you don't want to spawn this closer to the enemies is that, one, that it's not going to take any cover whatsoever when it comes to this. It's not a smart AI in that kind of sense. It will quite happily stand out in the open to be able to do that. But also it then needs to be able to use its action points to be able to come over to you, and it needs a point to be able to move, and it needs a point to be able to heal up the teammate. So you don't want to cause them to sprint all the way back to then miss out on a turn of healing. Overall, Call of the Grabber is absolutely amazing and easily top tier, especially when it comes to early game and being able to keep yourself sustained when it comes to firefights and being able to actually outlast some of the boss damage that will be coming your way. Unfortunately, it is tied behind a fairly difficult fight in and of itself when it comes to Traggle Chak Crook, but once you do manage to beat this frog boss, and if you haven't already, make sure to check out our guide to be able to see how you're able to do that a little bit more easily. Then once you have this ability, it starts to make some of the fights so much easier and it's a little bit more tedious compared to some of everything else you fight so far. But there you go, that is a quick roundup on the first 3 miasma powers that you do get inside of this game, and like I said, this is all the way up to the first boss. Notably, once we actually get past that and once we have full access to the game, which is going to be on the 23rd of May, then as soon as we get a little bit further, as soon as we get to experiment a bit more with some of the powers, I will be doing a bit of a better showcase to be able to show the best kind of miasma powers that do exist in this game. But it's hard to ignore that being able to heal all of your teammates all the way back up to full at the low cost of 50 kilowatts is just so hard to be able to actually beat, I think, in this game. But I'm ready to be surprised when it comes to that on that front. But massive thank you for making your way to the end of the video. Massive thank you to the Babylonian family, as always, for their continued support. It really does help the channel out. Let me know in the comment section down below which of the 3 powers have you seen so far that you like the look of. Which one will you be rocking when it comes to Elvis? And if you had the chance to be able to go into your skill deck to be able to equip 2 or 3 abilities, which ones are you going to prioritize first? But that just wraps it up on the video, so thank you so much again. Make sure to drop a like and subscribe if you want to find your way back for some more Miasma Chronicles gameplay and some more guides to be able to help you out. But with all that said and done, that just leaves me to say, keep yourself safe, keep yourselves well, and I'll see you all on our next video.